It's down to one putt for the win. Is it his time?
All right. Welcome to the collective one more time. Sorry. Noob right here. Had to pause that music. Yep. Awesome. As you guys see, we've got 3 people here, and Cam, unfortunately, is not with us this week. But we do have a, I don't know. I think he's a pretty damn cool guest. I'm pretty stoked to have Scott on.
I'm excited.
Man, Scott, we met, what, 4 years ago? Like, I had just started playing golf again, and I was like looking stuff up on Instagram, and I saw some of your pictures, and I was like, this guy's in freaking Oregon. I'm gonna hit him up. So that's kind of how it began, and I actually showed up to play golf, and you're like, damn, you actually showed up.
Yeah, we played Juniper, and it was like first tee time of the day, and you're like, I haven't been playing much golf lately. I've just been into my bike thing. And then he shows up and proceeds to hit one 300 yards off the tee, first tee at 55 degrees outside, and I was like, oh, you don't play golf? Okay.
Yeah, we've played a few other times. I played with one of your other lefty buddies, which was kind of cool. So we actually had 2 lefties in one group. I know that you hate that, Teddy, but sometimes it happens.
Well, my dad's a lefty too, so I'm apparently I'm attracted to playing golf with lefties. That's my forte, is playing as much golf with lefties as I can. One day, hopefully, it'll be Phil.
Yeah, seriously, that would be or any of the lefties that are in the tour right now would be super fun. Like Akshay, could you imagine going to go play around with Akshay? That'd be pretty badass, I think.
I think that'd be just like playing golf with your buddy, right? Like, he seems like he's such a cool dude.
Yeah, he's one of the cool guys on tours right now. So, I mean, as we get into this, Teddy, what was the weekend like? You do anything fun?
I went and saw my Jaguars play. It was the first preseason game. They had the Chiefs come to town. A lot of Chiefs fans in Jacksonville.
Really?
Don't know why. But there was a lot of red. I also was expecting not a lot of traffic, pretty empty stadium because it's preseason. Like, who cares? Packed. Took me like an hour to go 3 miles. It was awful. But then once we got into the game and stuff, it was cool. It's a good atmosphere. Beers are $20. I don't know if that's how it is.
Not a fan of the stadium prices.
Yeah, last time I went to an NFL game, I didn't drink, so didn't notice. Yeah, $20. Now it's like the big boys, where it's basically like 2 beers. So I guess that's fine. But yeah, didn't love that part. Everything else was great though.
Scott, are you a NFL fan at all? I know you're a Ducks fan. That's one thing that we completely agree on in life is the Oregon Ducks. But NFL at all?
Yeah, so I am an NFL fan, and a lot of the fans of the program, I should say, don't like the NFL team that I associate myself with just regionally. So I am a San Francisco 49ers fan. So.
Wait, what? You are?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I knew we were like best friends.
I didn't say big Niners guy.
Yeah. My entire family is like Niners fans from like early 80s. So.
Well, and I grew up in Portland, born and raised Portland, and lived in Oregon, except a few years in Colorado. But growing up, honestly, the Niners were on TV for us regionally more than the Seahawks were.
Yeah.
And my dad was always he was a sports fan, so he didn't really associate with one team or the other. He just liked sports and liked me being interested in it. And I remember he loved, for whatever reason, he fell in love with the Buffalo Bills. And it was hilarious that, to me, as a kid, that they would get lost how many in a row. And now, as an adult, I see the other side of it and I feel pretty bad. But he always, it cracks me up. He always tells me, you gave me such a hard time about being a Bills fan. And I was like, because you weren't really a fan of anyone. You just like sports. So,
Well, you couldn't pick a team farther away.
oh, no.
Yeah. Might as well go with the Miami Dolphins. That might be the farther from
I
Oregon.
mean, and this guy's never, I mean, I don't think my dad ever traveled outside of the state of Oregon until he was 30, 40 years old. So, he didn't know anything else otherwise.
That's funny. Did you play any golf this weekend?
I didn't play any golf this weekend, but I've been on quite a bit of a roll lately, playing a lot of fun courses and actually doing more golfing than I am behind the camera or behind the drone. So that's been a great August for me.
Nice. That's fun. I got to actually play one of our. I mean, you and I both love this course, Tokatee. So I took my daughter out to Tokatee yesterday. Played with Todd and one of his buddies. She proceeded to beat Todd's buddy, which was hilarious because now she's beat him on 2 different courses, Emerald Valley and Tokatee. And she has proceeded to talk crap about it the entire time we were at dinner, which I'm like, all right, you're going to get beat and he's going to be able to do this back to you. You know this, right? And then one course that I know you like, I was sending pictures to Teddy over the weekend, which is Tethero. So, I mean, I got invited to play in their men's league, which was super fun. Had a pretty good round going, shot a 37 on the front.
Whoa, okay.
I was like, damn, I actually am playing golf, and then went on the back 9 and decided to shoot a 40. So, but 77 from the black and tans was fun. So,
I mean,
your putts number went down though, didn't they? What was the?
No, I had 37 putts.
Oh, I thought you had. For some reason, I thought the text said 31.
I had 31 yesterday and shot a 7.
Oh, that's what it was.
So
Okay.
yeah, my Scott, you'll learn this. I just can't putt, but I can strike the ball. Like you've seen.
Well,
me hit
Scott, you
drives.
played with him. Is that the case? Can he just? Is the stroke like? Is it sketchy or? Reads? Like, what's the problem in your opinion?
I suffer from the same problem. My putting is either very hot or it's very cold. And it is one of those where I have definitely, I think we played Forest Hills one time up in Portland. And it sneaky, really good course. I think William Bell designed it. And again, 1920s course. And you don't really think much of it. And then you get out there and you're like, wow, like, this can punish you. And I remember you had a fried egg on like one of the first few holes, just right in a bunker lip.
I think it was the par 3.
Yeah. Longer par 3, just threw it right in the side. But he, it's streaky, right? As I think most amateur golfers can be. You get in a zone and all of a sudden you're invisible, and then next few times you're like, I love wasting good drives and good iron shots with 3 putts,
Nice drive, guy.
Tethero's a lot like Bandon. Your putts don't necessarily tell the whole story, because there's some putts at Tethero that that's a good 3 putt, from there. So
that was the thing. Like Cam took a picture of the Grint, because like we're on the Grint, so he was looking at it. He's like, how do you have 19 putts and you've got a 37? Like, this doesn't make any sense. You missed like
out of 1 fairway.
Yeah.
You hit almost all the greens.
I was striking the ball. I mean, but it was like I got on one side of one of the greens. I was like, I have no idea how I'm going to keep this on the green with putting it. Like, that's just Tethero to me.
Yeah.
You go through Kid Corner and it is like, I don't know what his wife did to him, but it's just, that was mean. Whatever she did, now he's taking it out on all of us. So,
well, and they've softened the course too. It's
they've made the greens easier. Yeah. So I remember hole number 3 being more of a volcano than it is now. And I think that's one of the holes that they kind of flattened out the green, because literally if you got on top, you weren't getting back on top when they put the pin up there, because you were just going to go from one side to another. So, but Yeah. So golf this weekend was fun. Cool to hear that you're playing more, Scott. As we dig into this, I know that this is the first time you and Teddy have ever talked, and obviously for the listeners of the podcast, tell us a little bit about Scott. Like, what's the 9 to 5? What's your golf story? Like, what's your elevator story for us here?
Yeah. So, definitely born and raised in Portland, Oregon, and spent a lot of time in the Northwest, as the namesake, I should say, calls. And I'm happy to say that I love where we live. No offense, Teddy. Florida's got some great golf, but I always have to tell people, I'm like, for what we're looking at for public golf and for the value that we get out here, and the other thing is, what I tell a lot of people too is, hey, it costs a lot less to keep a course green out here than it does other places, due to the good and the bad, right? The rain that we have to deal with 6 months out of the year. But luckily, there's a couple places along the Oregon coast that you can always go escape to and get some fast and firm conditions year round. But yeah, so my big thing that's always kind of driven me to golf was my dad, and playing with him at an early age. And he was a general contractor, always doing remodels, residential remodels, all that stuff. So between that, I was always around real estate, and I was always around golf. And I spent a couple years in the corporate sales world, realized that that wasn't necessarily what I wanted to do my whole life, and decided to start my own business, and became a residential real estate professional here in Oregon. And I've done that for 10 years. And I'm happy to report, though, that in the last few years, the golf business has been taken off, and it's coming to a head where I might have to decide here pretty soon what I want to, pursue full time. But I love real estate. But I can tell you what, there's nothing quite like being out on a golf course first thing in the morning, just the greens crew, and me being able to fly my drone around. So it's a special thing, and I pinch myself that I'm fortunate enough to do it. So
did real estate, you ever get into photography on real estate, or was it just like, I'm going to go into golf? And so that's one of the things that kind of helped me, I would say, is early on in real estate. I was an early adapter of, I'd say in the real estate world, of Instagram and Twitter, and kind of, just having my lens, my perspective on the real estate world. And that allowed me to get a pretty good following. And then also, being born and raised in the area, my whole connection, my whole sphere is here in the Portland metro area, and beyond regionally. So it was something that always felt comfortable to me. And it's something that I love. To me, anytime we go travel places, my wife always, she's like, okay, when are we going to go just look around, go to all the neighborhoods you want to look at in whatever city you're in? And that's just, no matter what. And I'm always going to do that. And those are my two things too, is she'll always say, what were you looking at? And it was either a cool house or a golf course that we drove by. So. Totally. So golf, how long ago did the photography start for you?
Well, so I would say 4 or 5 years ago, honestly, in 2019, I was fortunate enough to win the lottery for the Masters, and was able to take my dad down. And we spent.
You're just gonna cause Teddy to blow up at this point.
Yeah,
I'm out of here. I'm done. You've mentioned courses that he wants to play, and now you're talking about a Masters trip.
2019 of all times to go to.
It was, when I won, and what you find out, a year earlier, 2018, I had no idea what was going to transpire. Fast forward a few months, but yeah, we were, we ended up winning Wednesday tickets, which was, par 3 tournament, which in my opinion, as a photographer, is the best day to go, because you can take your camera in. And it is something that is, and sharing that with my dad, who kind of introduced me to the game, was a pretty special experience. I don't think he was prepared for the amount of steps I was putting in that day, walking to every corner of that course. But he sure enjoyed the food prices, the food and beverage prices on site. But yeah, that was a special time, and I took my camera there, and I was lucky enough to meet Christian Hafer, which a lot of people know on Instagram, Hafe Life on Instagram.
Oh yeah, I've actually followed that Instagram.
Yeah, he's out in Lancaster area in Pennsylvania, does a ton of stuff with Golfers Journal and everyone in the business. He's been a great resource to me over the years, just adding value to where I can potentially add value to the courses out here. But yeah, and Jeff Marsh, he's another guy who
Jeff's such a good guy.
Yeah, PNW legend, and I got to meet him years ago at Gamble Sands. We had mutual contact up there that brought us up there for a media day. But yeah, that Masters trip really was the kind of turning point where I got back from there, and it just kind of clicked, and then I started, people started really noticing what I was doing, and from that point, it kind of has snowballed into where it is today. I always joke, I've always loved taking photos. I've always been a scenery photographer, landscape. Ansel Adams was a huge inspiration to me growing up, and so I was into photography before I got into golf, or I guess I should say similar time growing up. But I'll tell you what, once I started flying the drone, I think that's when it all changed for me. That's what I love. I love shooting handheld. I love doing tournaments, lifestyle photography, all that. But like I said earlier, give me a course first thing in the morning, last thing at night, just me and the course, and some crazy light, and that's my happy place.
We were at that Forest Heights or Forest Hills?
Forest Hills, yeah.
You were flying your drone there, and that was like the first time I was like, wait a second, all right, this is going to be interesting. And just like watching it go around, I was like, huh, okay, cool.
Did you try hitting it?
No.
Everybody likes to, I always joke, we were at actually Astoria Country Club. We were at the Oregon Coast Invitational and doing a par 3 tournament, and I was filming it, and a couple of guys, having some extra adult beverages were like, oh, hit the drone, try to hit the drone. And the head pro looked over and was like, I don't think you can afford to hit that drone. And it's I've had a couple close calls for sure, but I'll fly it when I'm playing, when I'm contracted, and that's how it started, right? Is I think the old saying, right? Do whatever you're gonna do it, and then if you love it, it'll turn into work. And that's one thing I get questions a lot about what transpired, how did you get to this point? And I always joke, taking 1 million photos, literally over the last 5 years, taking 1 million photos, editing for hours and hours and hours, learning all the ins and outs of Lightroom, Premiere Pro, everything. It's just something that, again, I found that niche that I loved and went for it.
Teddy, I think you were going to ask a question, and then I rudely interrupted you with a story about a drone.
No, it was just mainly like for, like you said, you really enjoyed like landscape photography, and I'm sure once you got that drone and being able to see like a different perspective on what you've already kind of been drawn to was just kind of really made it click.
Well, and yeah, I think it's a different perspective, and it's just that different angle. And it's funny because not every drone needs to be up at the max height to get the best picture. Sometimes I'm standing on a golf course and for whatever reason, I can't get it with the handheld. And I'm just like, I just need to be like 5 feet above where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
I don't need to be 40 feet. But it allows, and I mean, I think it's been incredible for the golf world as a whole to have that as a marketing tool. Because again, I mean, there's courses that I've reached out to that have reached out to me, and I look at their website and it's it's from 1995, and it's like in the day and age right now with what's going on, it's a visual world, and if you're not on the forefront of capturing someone's interest within 5 to 10 to 15 seconds, you've already lost it. So I think it's been a huge innovation for the golf world, and hopefully it just continues to to kind of push the envelope of what we use to market these beautiful properties.
I think any course you play it, or for me at least at this point, I mean, almost any company actually, I'll just go on Instagram and I'll look up at this point. And then when it comes to golf courses, like I'm going on a trip with my cousins to St. George, and so the first thing I did was just go on Instagram and start trying to find it. And it is wildly surprising how bad some of it is, where you look up and you're like, you're giving me like 0 views of this course. Like I have no idea what type of course I'm getting myself into at this point, besides looking at slope and rating and, what the scorecard looks like, which is kind of a bummer because there's a lot of cool things about almost any course you play, right? Like I haven't played a course yet where I'm like, man, this thing is just trash. I don't even want to be here. Like there's always like a little miracle you can get out of it. Maybe not in Florida.
Well, so I have a video on Instagram that's done very well. It's a Red Tail golf course here in Portland, Southwest Portland, and
like middle of the city, Muni.
Yeah, and if you wanna have fun in the comment section, go look at that because it is a lot of mixed reviews, right? And trust me, going to play Red Tail, you can get stuck out there, and it could be a 5.5-hour round, it could be a 6-hour round. It's a really hard golf course. It's 11 elevated greens, and the tips are like 7,000 yards. So for a Muni, certainly a tough course, but I went out there one sunset and just, flew the drone, took some videos. And one of my buddies messaged me after I sent him everything. He saw it on Instagram and he goes, "Man, you just made Red Tail look like Augusta National."
Yeah.
And it's something, when the light is good and you have a beautiful shadows coming over a course. And again, we're fortunate enough to live in a spot that's so green for most of the year. Again, sometimes I always joke it's hard to mess this up when you can find the right angles. Again, the drone is a master in finding that right angle.
Totally. You had another trip that you mentioned to me when we were talking before this, and you mentioned Pinehurst. So Cam unfortunately is not here right now.
And also unfortunately.
Yeah. And Cam also did not invite the two of us on this trip. So we both are still a little bitter about it, but I know that there's a few listeners that are actually going on this trip. So what can you tell them about Pinehurst since you've been there and had a really good experience?
Yeah. So, and it ties again back to the Masters. So my dad had a pretty substantial surgery the year before we went to the Masters. So he wasn't able to play golf. But I was going to Augusta. We were only going to be there for 2 days. And then I wanted to be able to go do something on that side of the country. And lo and behold, I realized, hey, Pinehurst is only 2.5, 3 hour away from Augusta. And I decided, okay, well, I'm going to make the detour, drop my dad off. We flew into Charlotte, dropped him off at the Charlotte airport, and drove straight to Tobacco Road.
Real quick, that drive from Charlotte to that area is crazy.
Yeah.
Like you're going through trailer parks.
Like,
I'm looking at this place like, dude, I'm way too West Coast for this because I think if my car breaks down, I am completely hosed right now. Like this would be really weird. And then all of a sudden you see white houses and you're like, oh, this is really nice. Okay, this is strange. Like it's a weird 90-minute drive.
It's a very I always joke it's the Baptist belt pretty much. It's like you'll find more Baptist churches through that stretch from South Carolina, North Carolina, all through there. And it is, you know, Baptist churches and bars, right? Like those are the two main small town things. But yeah, so I ended up booking a trip actually through, you know, give them a plug, Talamore Golf Resort.
Oh yeah.
Did a bunch of info on that. And they were great, took great care of me. And I ended up, yeah, just Tobacco Road was, as a visual golfer,
Yeah.
that had always struck me as the pinnacle of like what is interesting golf. And I'd done a lot of research on Mike Strantz, and he is an absolute legend. And unfortunately, we lost him far too young, because we would have a bunch more amazing golf courses here in the States for sure. But yeah, I showed up first tee time of the day solo by myself. The guys in the shop were kind of like, what's going on? You know, this guy's here before us, which is my MO, which I guess I adopted that day, of I'm the first one here. I don't want the pro shop to be unlocked when I get here. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went out and walked 18, and they were, again, kind of looking at me like, you sure you're going to walk this for the first time? And lo and behold, kind of got lost out there a little bit. A couple turns that aren't the easiest to navigate. Hit my tee-ball on number 2, which is a blind tee shot. You have no idea where you're going. Hit it completely the wrong direction. Ended up still making par there somehow. But yeah, had such a good time there that I ended up playing 36 that day. Grabbed a cart and my camera and all that good stuff for the second 18. And then when I was finishing up there, I got a text from a good friend who lived in Pinehurst, and she asked me if I was able to play Pine Needles that afternoon.
Oh yeah.
Oh wow.
Ended up playing Pine Needles and played probably the best 54 hole golf day I may ever experience. And this was right, I think it was a few months before the US Senior Open that was there. So the course was just pure. I was greeted in the parking lot with a beverage and a golf cart, and we went on our way. And it was incredible. Again, shout out to Talamore for taking care of me on everything. And then, from there, the next few days was jumping right into it. I played Mid Pines. I played the Cradle. Number 4 wasn't quite open then. And the resort, again, to my surprise at the time, but now that I realize it, the weekend of Masters weekend is one of the busiest weekends at Pinehurst Resort. And turns out a lot of people go spend early in the week at Augusta and go to Pinehurst. So it's very hard to book tee times there day of. But I managed to spend a lot of time on property with some great people. The whole Pinehurst Village as a whole is just an extremely special place. I highly suggest that if you're there, you can get caught up just spending a lot of time at the clubhouses and everything like that. Spend an hour and walk around Pinehurst Village. It is one of the best walks you can ever take. And it, all in all, forever, again, a little biased here, Bandon is, to me, the epitome of what you can make a golf trip. Pinehurst is a close second. It is incredible now to see some of the other courses that have popped up in the area. Dormy Club is another one that unfortunately is now mostly private, a little bit harder to get on. But Mid Pines Pine Needles are incredible. Obviously, number 2, there's so much history there. It's just a really special place.
Eddie, you played a bunch of those courses. Right?
Yeah, we do like a summer trip, and we'd do the Talamore deal with Mid Pines, Needles, and Southern Pines. That whole area is insane. The amount of golf courses that are like kind of all within a stone's throw of each other is insane. But also the fact that like once you get on like one of the courses or one of the properties, you don't even realize that you just passed an entrance to another one like half a mile down the road or even like a quarter mile down the road, because it just feels like you're in a whole nother world just because of the amount of like pine trees and just the way the terrain's all laid out. It's awesome. It's tough to find better experiences than that whole area.
Well, and you have every range too, right? Of
Yeah.
what the price point you can pay. Like you can
Whatever your budget is, you can put together a nice little trip for it.
and it's, again, it's I was very fortunate, and that again, I think coming home from that trip was an eye-opening experience for me, just to really experience another part of the country and see a golf culture that I think, is on part of what we have here. Again, we're very, very fortunate in Oregon. We have some great golf companies here, and some people pushing the needle in that regard. It's just when you experience those trips like that, I mean, it just kind of changes your perspective on what golf should be like. And I went out, so I actually played Mid-South Club with another mutual friend there. And then after, he said, we got to go get lunch at Pinehurst. We got to go have lunch at the Deuce. I got to show you around. He is actually one of the head operations guy at Friars Golf Club, which is a kind of private membership. You might be familiar with that. It's big in your neck of the woods, over there. And they had he's had a lot of experience at Pinehurst, and we showed around there. And he goes, we got a call at some point. He had to go pick up the kids. And I was like, all right, well, I'm going to go play the Cradle, and, play the Cradle once, come back, I'm finishing up. And he comes with his daughter and, his son. And at the time, I think, again, they were probably 5 and 3. And I remember looking at him and being like, my wife and I were trying for a family at the time. And I said, that's what I want. I want that right there. I want to be able to bring my kids out here and, have these experiences. And, fortunately, my 2 sons have been very lucky to experience some incredible golf courses by the time they're 4 years old already. Everybody always jokes, they ask my son what's his favorite golf course, and he tells them Pronghorn. So I said, we got a high bar to set there. So
yeah, that was a sweet trip, man. I didn't know you went to all those places. I mean, that's like that's like a golf trip of 20 years worth that you did in like 2 weeks or a week.
Yeah. I mean, it was 6 days, and I mean, I literally 36 a day, spending pretty much from sun up to sundown wherever golf property I was at. And again, you spoke to it, the proximity, I finish up and be at the next course. I mean, some of them are walking right across the street. You walk to it.
You could take the cart, but they don't let you. But
they frown upon that. Show up at Mid Pines with a Pine Needles cart,
Yeah, that's hilarious. Yeah, those courses look so awesome. I mean, I only drove there because I was in the area for work, and I was like, damn, I'm in 90 minutes from Pinehurst. Like, I have to go there. And like, Cam knows the story because he asked me, well, why didn't you play? My boss was like, hey, you should just go play. We have like 4 or 5 hours. And I'm like, I can't play Pinehurst with a set of rental clubs and not like get the full experience. So it was like,
and on possibly a time crunch or something.
Yeah. And I was like, you know what? Like, I don't want that to be this round, so I skipped. I'm probably going to try and go later this fall, because I've got to go to the same area again. So we'll see if I can actually get some golf in. Speaking of kids, my daughter is 13. So if I go there without her, though, at this point, I think I'll get severely yelled at. So we'll have to just either be quiet about that or take her. So we'll see how that goes. Back to the photography side of things, because I know like Teddy was really interested in like the style that you shoot and equipment and stuff like that.
Yeah. Could you kind of explain? I know you kind of started doing it more like real estate focused, but can you kind of explain like maybe kind of the different levels to? I know for drones, there's like several different levels that you can kind of get to. Can you just kind of speak on that a little bit as far as kind of like what you started with and then kind of how it's progressed and kind of like what you're currently using?
Yeah. So originally, it's again funny enough, like how the Instagram page started was
Mhm.
honestly a lot of iPhone photos.
Mhm.
I was just pretty much
Yeah.
documenting this is a cool photo. I'll take a picture, and I like this. And I think from that, I wasn't just taking photos from the tee box, right? Or
Mhm.
from whatever. I was giving some different perspectives. And that got me interested enough to really dive into, okay, having a good camera. The Masters trip kind of tied into that too. But I think overall, again, it really started from, I always joke, and again, shout out to them, pioneers in the industry, no laying up guys, is like that old school kind of just, here's the golf course. We
Mhm.
just want to see as much of the golf course as possible. And it's like from what perspective you're going to see it at when you're standing on that tee box or from wherever. And I think that was, a big part of kind of thinking, okay, well, like this is great, but this is the same thing that everybody sees, right?
Mhm.
And I feel like it was, around that 2019, 2020, where drones came pretty prevalent. And so, yeah, I mean, it's gone from iPhone photos to my first like handheld camera was a mirrorless. And not my first, but my most recent kind of when this whole journey started was a Panasonic Lumix. I had a little 50 prime lens that I would carry around that would be my just like everyday shooter. Which again, for like beginners, I always tell people, like I suggest, it doesn't really matter. Like there's a lot like the A6400, the Sony, there's a lot of good Nikons, there's a lot of good Canons for entry level people. And then go out and get it. Like, don't spend a lot of money on a body and spend a decent amount on a nice lens.
Okay.
And that will give you, and again, having a zoom lens is great. Right now I shoot on a Sony 70 to 200 2.8, and it's a $3,000 lens, and it's fast, and that, and then a 300 2.8. That's what everybody's shooting with, or 100 to 400, something like that. But that's predominantly what's being used, at the Olympics, which you just saw being used at
Mhm.
all the golf tournaments. And I think it's easy to get caught up in that, like, tournament photo perspective.
Mhm.
It's a whole different beast when you're trying to capture a golf course, and get every angle and kind of the wide angle perspective of these spots. And so, yeah, the camera setup has gone again from Panasonic, very basic Panasonic. Now I'm shooting with my Sony A7 IV. And the reason I love that camera is because it's probably the best hybrid video and photo camera out there. And then you pair that with the 70 to 200 GM Sony lens, I can do a whole lot with those instead of having two bodies, two lenses that I have to worry
Mhm.
about. And then for certain jobs, if it's necessary, I'm lucky enough to have a bunch of friends in the industry, and I can have a lot of other equipment at my
Mhm.
resource. But certainly for most golf photography, I always tell people for landscape, a good zoom, 24 wide angle, something like that, or a 24 to 50, 24 to 70. And then for tournament photography, when you need that extra reach, the 70 to 200 is just the best of the best. So,
Now, so Justin and I are trying to get better. Well, Justin's pretty good at it. I'm trying to get better at taking pictures as we're like playing and doing stuff like that. For us iPhone users, what do you suggest? Like, I know my girlfriend has told me a couple times like which frame to use and stuff like that, but unless she does it before I take the picture, like I don't know.
yeah.
So, can you just kind of like what's the stock way that like we should use this phone and the camera?
So, the rule of thirds is the most important thing to photography. And I think
Okay, where's
Anthony,
my pin?
and like the rule of thirds is pretty much if you're looking at an image,
Okay.
there's three parts, right? And the rule of thirds is that you want the subject in that middle third, and then you want, you know, whatever you have, landscape, anything like that, and then in the foreground. And I think a lot of people worry too much about everything that's going on in the image. And for most of the time, an image should be the tighter the image, the better. It's hard to express the way that works, because again, for golf, that wide shot is usually the best, shows the most. But if you look at an image, to me, when I look at an image and it's, you know, whether you're shooting horizontal or vertical right now, you know, like the image I'm actually looking at, you know, this is where I'm at right now in the frame, right? The image I'm looking at is this image right here, right? Or right here. And so it's just that little kind of microcosm of what the actual image is. And from there, you kind of try to block out all the noise, right? So if there's little bushes in, or if there's a cart in there, and then obviously there's times where you can use those, you know, to reveal a photo or to kind of hone in on a subject. But it honestly is one that I think, using the rule of thirds, especially for most landscape golf course photography, like if you're just like, I want these photos to remember this golf course by, right? That's the most important part. And then also, you know, don't feel bad about taking photos, right? Like, don't, if it's allowed.
That could be the other thing that I struggle with too.
Yeah, like at whatever course you're at, if it's allowed and it's acceptable, you know, fire away. And I think that was the thing that I had to get over. I still have to get over sometimes, is when I had the camera out there and people were like, "Oh, this guy with the fucking camera." Everybody,
this guy's got a drone, really?
Excuse my language, but that's like, it's everybody's like, "Oh, well, this guy," you know, and then it's funny because I'm like, "Oh yeah," but then they get a picture of themselves and they're like, "Oh, this is incredible! Like,
This is dope."
I should have liked this guy more.
It's funny. So I think about it because I take way too many pictures. Like I go on a course, and like if my daughter and I are playing, obviously, I mean, you guys have seen my Instagram. We'll take videos and all sorts of pictures of her and like the golf trips that we've been going on. But like if I would get her a camera so that she could actually take pictures while she's golfing, what would you get?
Yeah, so I mean, there's so many good options out there. I would get a mirrorless first. I would get whatever you're gonna get, a mirrorless camera.
Probably, yeah, so that's the big thing, a mirrorless camera.
Yeah, and I mean, DSLRs are great, but mirrorless is it's just makes such a big difference. You know, like I have a setup again right now. The Sony setup is really, really nice, and the fact of the mirrorless setup is that I can go shoot, you know, 50 frames in 10 seconds and no one's going to hear that at all, right? And so if I'm taking photos at golf courses inconspicuously, or if I'm at a tournament, obviously, you know, you can't have that shutter going off. And I think mirrorless is a huge, that's just where the future of photography to me is. Yeah, I have a little film camera that I love to go shoot with, and you know, all that. I think the OG photographers are gonna kill me when I am saying mirrorless is the way to go. But a little mirrorless that's 16 to 20 megapixels. So like, to me, the perfect example is the Sony A6400. You can get it for a really good value. And then again, like I said, if you're gonna do more kind of golf course landscape, get a 20 to 50 millimeter. Whether it's a zoom or a prime. And then if you do want to take more kind of, I always joke, the bird photography, right? If you want to be a bird photographer, get the big 100 to 400 zoom lens. And I think that's, you know, if you really are interested in it and you want to keep going, that's kind of taking the next step and really figuring out what you like to photograph. But certainly, you can get a really good setup for $500, $1,000. That will get you, get your feet wet, at least in the industry.
So that'll do video as well, right? Like a lot of
so most of them
video.
Yeah, and another benefit of the mirrorless is a lot of them, have that setting where you can switch it over. And now those probably aren't going to get you 4K or anything like that, but you certainly, like a lot of the Sonys have a slow-mo feature. So, that's that's very, very wanted in the content world right now. And then the thing is, you actually, a lot of the times, what most people shoot is most people actually shoot in slow-mo because you can always speed it up. As long as you're not about sound, that's the only time when you're shooting in 30 or 24 frames is when you want the sound to be, crystal clear. But so that's another thing that I've learned is just there's so many depths of how big a project can get and, what you're trying to accomplish. Is this going to go on ESPN? Is this going to be a commercial that's going to be blasted, all around? Or are we putting this on Instagram? Is this going to be 1080p on your social media feed to 1,000 followers, right? Because there's differences of what we need to accomplish with those projects.
So I think it's funny, like talking about the projects and what you're trying to accomplish. Like what Teddy brought this up earlier when him and I were talking. He was like, what type of prep work actually goes into these shoots? Like what's your schedule look like? Because I mean I follow you enough on Instagram and obviously being friends that I see you like, where am I going today? And you're leaving at like 2 a.m. I know like your MO, like you and Jeff Marsh, you guys get out there super early, but what are you guys doing like when you're going out to the course?
Well, so a lot of the times, I mean, there's projects right now that I'm working on that have been 2 years in the making, right? Is contacting the marketing, whether it's, they don't have the budget for it this year, or whether it's a private club and we have to get membership approval just to get out there and to, make the course visible. The timelines for setting up a project can be anywhere from, I've had it where it's, hey, can you come out next week and do this project? Or it's, we're going to have to send 5 emails back and forth and it's going to take 6 months just to even get this process going. But from a perspective of the photography, as soon as I know I'm going to be on site somewhere, I'm looking at the aerial map, of what the course looks like. Fortunately enough, I've been to a good amount of the courses in the state of Oregon and Washington. And that's another thing that helps me is the knowledge of being on that course rather than the first time I've ever stepped foot on there. But certainly looking at the aerial maps, figuring out where that light's going to be coming from and at what time that light's going to be coming from. Going back and forth with the course about what's the signature holes. What do you want to accomplish with this? And I would say, if you're splitting into me on site one day, there's probably half of a day of prep work that goes into it before. And then another, at least half a day of the editing process and everything like that. And it's very, you can go very in depth. I look at same thing what you said, right? I pull up the Instagram. What is their presence like right now? Do they have any good photos? Has anyone I know shot there so I can get a sense of what that landscape might look like? Because, again, I've had it where I show up at a course and they have a golf cart ready for me and they say, I'm like, what do you want to do? And they're just like, do your thing,
Yeah, I'm curious, like how much say or thought that they put into it beforehand. Where they like, hey, we want you to show this, this, and this, or for the most part, if they're just kind of like, it looks like you know what you're doing, man. Just kind of, carts come back at 7. So
yeah. That's there's always coordination, right? And I think it's funny because the month of June, we get some long days in the month of June. And I can't tell you how many times I've said, have a cart ready for me at this time. And I show up and there's not a cart ready. And they said, well, I thought I was going to get here at 5:30. I thought I'd still beat you here. And, I'm like, well, light's at 5:30. So, I have to be in my position ready to go. And so it's a very mixed bag. A lot of, I always joke, I know within 3 or 4 emails of how in depth they take the process of marketing and content and social media, which is, it's a hard concept for a lot of courses because, 2020 to 2023 was a very, very lucrative time for a lot of golf courses. They didn't have to do anything and they were making the most money they've ever made. And now I think that tide's kind of turned a little bit. Obviously, the economy's in a little bit different spot than it was. Remote working's kind of back, or not as prevalent as it once was. So I think a lot of golf courses are starting to think outside the box, which is good. But it is very interesting to talk to these golf courses because it is, they either are trusting me kind of as the creative in the process, or they're simply saying, and there's the flip side of that is like they have 40 bullet points for me that I want to hit. And then they've also only contracted me for 4 hours of work. And I'm like, okay, yeah, we'll see what we come up with.
Is it better one way or the other? Like if they're more hands-on, less hands-on, is it easier or harder?
Yeah, like I certainly prefer a little bit of understanding of what they're looking for, right? But I've had courses that are like, or too, the other thing is members, I'll be out shooting and members are like, hey, you got to be on this tee box at this time because that's the perfect spot to be. And I'm like, okay, appreciate that, but thanks. So it's a fine balance, but I definitely think the courses, it would be no surprise to you if you went on a website or a social media page of a course that gets it and understands it. And then you see the flip side of that. Right. And so again, like I said, it takes me 5 minutes to understand what I'm coming into from that perspective. But I can't tell you, I've had public courses that have said, hiring you last year was the best thing we ever did. Just from those images being used at, the local golf shows and all that stuff. And then also, my following, I have, how me and Justin met, man. I have golf degenerates. Like if you follow my page, if you're interested in what I'm doing, you're like me, right? We're very like-minded, and there's pretty much one thing we care about the most, and it's golf. And so that's the common interest that I think a lot of us share. And so again, just finding that that cool, different, those different kind of angles and perspectives that you can share.
You mentioned like getting up early. I always think this is interesting. And Teddy, I want to hear your view on this. Are you a sunrise or a sunset guy?
I always joke. I always joke on both. Give me the first tee time of the day and then give me the last tee time of the day. I'll go home and take a nap in the middle of the day when the light's flat. And but I'm notorious for missing dinner. If we're on a golf trip and something's going on, everybody's like, what's going on? We're going to book dinner. I'm going to be on the golf course, guys. Like that's when I'm going to be flying the drone, or, that's when I'm going to be doing my thing. And so again, sunset to me, and it's very different, right? Like Chambers, perfect example. Sunrise at Chambers happens very quickly because most of it's protected by the big mound. You don't get sunlight until a certain point, and then everything's lit up. Where if you have the sunset over the water and it's kind of shimmering off the sound and you get that long, sunset, it's just like, that's the perfect time. So it's very interesting when I look at photos of golf courses. I can already, I know what time of day it was taken, where most people would be like, I don't know if that's sunrise or sunset. And I'm like, well, that whole face is this way. And then the sun was coming up. So,
yeah. So just for like personal preference though, are you a sunrise or sunset guy?
If I'm playing golf, I want first tee time of the day.
Yeah. Teddy, sunrise or sunset guy?
It's tough because it's summer in Florida, so right now it's morning sunrise tee time before it gets crazy hot. But usually I think I prefer that afternoon, like one of those last tee times, twilight rounds. Um, it's just it's I think it's more peaceful.
Okay. I've been like just a sunrise guy forever. Like if I look in my phone, like the sunrise pictures are there. Um, until I started going to the beach. And you'll find this probably funny, Scott. Um, I didn't go to the Oregon coast until I was married. Like I only live like 3-4 hours
I
away,
was gonna
but
say,
just
not far.
never went. And went to the coast, and like sunsets for whatever
Hmm.
reason, when you're at Cannon Beach, I am just like, plant me here. I will sit on this thing forever, and love it. But I've got so many pictures of sunrises. I just love, like, I love being the first one off on the course, and like the whole dew sweeping aspect of it. I mean, you're there, you're seeing all the tracks. Like, there's something about it for me. I don't know. So that's my interesting question. But
Yeah.
so it what were you gonna say, Teddy?
Nothing.
Uh,
I was laughing.
so we've kind of gone over equipment and all sorts of stuff, but I want to go into like more of like the courses. And so I've got a few questions for you on this. Like, what are your top 5 bucket list courses to shoot? And do those differ from your top 5 bucket lists to play?
Yeah. So there's one that comes to mind right off the bat. We've already kind of mentioned it. Tethero. I always joke. That's a course that I'll leave my clubs at home. Give me the camera, give me the drone, and let me go crazy out there. I'm also a fanatic for, what you discussed and said is sunrises and sunsets in Central Oregon that you guys get over there are exceptional. And when you have the long days in June, it's a very special spot. So I would put Tethero up there for sure on the shoot side. One of my favorite courses to shoot. Obviously Bandon. I've been fortunate to shoot a couple tournaments that I've been down there and then do some, coursework. Bandon is obviously a very special spot. So just the fact that I'm able to shoot down there is very good. It's another challenging spot though, because most courses I show up to and they have a cart ready for me, and I'm ripping around in a cart. And this Bandon, no, you're walking just like everybody else is walking. And
oh
so,
my God, that's awful.
I mean, they'll have certain exceptions, right? But if it's just me walking around with a camera, they're like, no, you can go put your steps in. And so that's one that, again, it comes with challenges, but I wouldn't, and it's always, the weather's always challenging, right? But I wouldn't trade that for the world. From a shooting perspective too, I actually, growing up, tree line courses, Pacific Northwest, Wecopaw down in Arizona, outside of Scottsdale. That is probably one of my favorite spots. Outside of the Northwest, that's my favorite spot to photograph. So far in my travels. It's just the landscape out there. You don't have any homes on either of the courses. So it's just desert landscape, and the contrast that you get from the overseed, the rough, and it's incredible. So I'd have to throw that in there. And then I'd probably have to bring it back to, my favorite place to shoot, and a place that's very special to me because it's given me a lot of my opportunities early, is Wildwood here in Portland. And it is, again, quintessential tree lined, beautiful place, great management, family owned and operated. But it is, there are long shadows there forever. And there's little gaps. If you haven't played it, there's a couple little valleys that shoot off into, the forest, and you can get some exceptional shots there. And then I would say number 5 is probably another one that, I guess, it's tough because, like, again, Pronghorn, I love Pronghorn over in Central Oregon. But Astoria out on the coast, Astoria Country Club is another one of my favorites. It's just a very unique golf course that would never, ever, ever get built the way it is today.
Yeah.
If, like, again, the only way that course is the way it is because it was built that way back in the day, and they are lucky enough to have membership that hasn't wanted to change it since then. So again, very fortunate to be able to work there. But that would be my 5. And then for golf, man, I mean, this is another hot take that not a lot of people agree with. Old Mac at Bandon. I mean, Bandon Trails and Old Mac are my 2 favorite golf courses there. Old Mac on a calmer wind day is maybe the funnest golf you can play in the state of Oregon. And I will, it's funny because, and again, like, people always joke, and it's like, that's one of my favorite spots to play, no matter, yeah, you can go play Pacific Dunes, you can go play wherever, but just being out there, some of the looks on Old Mac are great.
Teddy, I'm pretty sure you're going to just have to make a trip, man.
Yeah, it's kind of what it sounds like.
We're going to have to just make the trip to Bandon. I'm pretty sure we're going to have to go together since I haven't gone yet. But yeah.
And, we can get you Oregonian rates on there too. So you'll save a little money that way.
Honestly, the rates at Bandon for, like, resident, what is it in January and February? It's $100 a round.
Yeah. It's insane.
Yeah.
And
crazy. So.
And I've known multiple people that have gone in the summer, right now, and it's 20 to 30 mile an hour winds every day. Sure, it's, sunshine, no rain, but it's only 60 degrees. It's only 65. And then in the winter, you can go in December. And then the other thing is frost delay, right? Everybody hates frost delay in the winter at Bandon because it means no 36. You're not going to get 36. But what it also means is that it means you're not going to have any wind that morning. And I think anybody would, after having that situation come up, you'd much rather take no wind over trying to get 36 in. But yeah, and then, another one of the courses in the Pacific Northwest that I love the most is Gamble Sands up in Brewster, Washington, a David McClay kid design. When you think about fun golf, that's the epitome of fun golf. Anybody, doesn't matter what skill you are, you can go there and shoot the best round of your life. And I think that's courses aren't built with that in mind, or at least haven't been up until recently. I think there's a new trend coming. You see Sedge Valley at Sand Valley. But I think overall, if you're talking about fun golf and fun experiences, like, you could take your daughter up there and she would, again, you can take her up there, but then you're going to have to go every year after that because she's
it's going to be an annual trip.
Yeah.
I'll give a shout out to you because I'm looking at your website right now. So if anyone wants to check it out, it's www.pnwgolfer.com. And if you go to clients, dude, you've got a pretty badass, like, collection of clients here. Like, we're talking Broken Top, Pronghorn, which are more like Oregon. Everyone kind of knows about that. But then you get into, like, Seamus, Gamble Sands, Classic Club. I mean, honestly, Classic Club down in Palm Springs is my go-to. Like, I love that golf course. Whenever we make the trip down, I make sure that I get one round on a Classic Club. My wife and I have recently found, like, Palm Springs is our jam in, like, September, October. So it is so much fun down there, and there's so many cool little things to do now. So it's cool to, like, look at your website and see how far it's came. Like, you've grown this to a cool little business, man. Well, and I shouldn't even say little, but just came out that way. But a cool business.
No, I mean, it's been fun to look back and reflect because, I mean, again, it's a lot of this has been in the last 18 months, right? It's and I think, again, it's just been a journey to get to this point. But I look back and, you know, again, I'm about to, you know, this coming up in a few weeks, I'm getting ready to go to Sand Valley for the first time, and I'm going to go out to Landman in Nebraska. And it's going to be for, you know, 5-6 days and a couple buddies, and we're going out. And I mean, this is, you know, for most people, this is a trip of a lifetime. And I'm just lucky enough to just loop this in on what already has been an incredible year for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been fun. And again, I think that's always my goal, right? Is to keep growing and have more clients outside of the Pacific Northwest. So yeah, those Palm Desert and Scottsdale clients, I love those clients in the winter, especially, for sure.
And I think, like I was gonna say it earlier, but it's funny because you're in Portland, which is about 3 hours away from me. We live in two completely different climates. Like I get 300 days of sunshine, at least they say that. But I don't get the rain that you do. So like when you come down to like Bend, right in the middle of the state, you are playing like kind of burned out hard courses that are tight, whereas like Portland gets literally 3 months straight of rain. So it's kind of like that watery for it. Like that's what everyone thinks of Oregon as, where like I'm up in the mountains type elevation, etc. So it's interesting because we get snow, you guys get rain. So going down to Arizona and Palm Springs for, you know, a little trip, that would rejuvenate the soul real quick.
Oh, I mean, it's pretty much necessary. We try to do at least once, you know, once a winter, spend a week down there, whether it's Palm Desert or Scottsdale. And I was fortunate enough to have some good friends that lived down there for a few years. So we would just go stay with them, and it was great. You know, we'd all go out and play some golf. And but you know, I will say my buddies down there, they don't like those winter rates, you know. So I go down in the winter and I'm like, hey man, I want to go play all the big courses. And they're like, no, we play those in the summer because that's when we can get them for under $100. So
super cheap. Well, I mean, you kind of experienced that, Teddy, right? Is that how courses are in Florida as well?
Yeah, there's some fluctuations, but I mean, by the time, like, you don't really want to play in like December and January, just because like it's most likely going to rain, and it could be 60 degrees out, it could be 20, like it just, you don't know. But yeah, you get all the snowbirds that come down and everything, and the rates kind of go from, it might be a $50 course in the middle of the summer, and then January around there, it's, you know, 100 plus.
Yeah. Here we just get snow and all the courses shut down. So we go skiing.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's a different beast. I mean, again, that's why I think Oregon's such a special place. Or I mean, anywhere in the Pacific Northwest is, you know, I'm an hour and a half from the coast. I'm an hour and a half from Mount Hood, which gets snow pretty much year round. 3 hours from Central Oregon, which is pretty much a desert. And so yeah, you have a little bit of everything here, and especially in the golf world. I mean, again, like, you know, heading out to the coast, getting that, you know, kind of fast and firm conditions year round at Gearhart or, you know, even Florence Golf Links. Yep, there you go, Gearhart.
Yeah. We go out to Gearhart every year. It's super cool. It's supposedly the oldest golf course west of the Mississippi. So super fun to like go and experience that. So that's actually, like, Teddy and I were talking about this with Cam earlier, where I was like, I don't like links golf. I never have. But 2 years ago when I started going there, I was like, oh, this is actually pretty cool. Like, I kind of like this layout. And then, like, I obviously played Tethero last week, and I was like, or on Saturday, and I was like, damn, this is really cool. Like, watching the Open this year, like, it's actually made me appreciate it a lot more than I ever have. So I'm getting there, Teddy. I'm getting there.
I didn't understand when you were sending some of the pictures this weekend. Like, in my head, I was like, how has he not liked links golf up until like recently?
Dude,
it didn't make any sense to me.
Scott, every time I've gone to Tethero, it is royally kicked my ass. Like, like, we joke around about how bad my putting is, but I don't four putt, and I've gone to Tethero and like had multiple four putts where I'm like, I can't even keep this putt on the green. This is the most ridiculous thing I've ever done. Or I hit a drive right in the middle of the fairway, yet it rolls into an eyebrow that is like and it's like,
Mhm.
really? This is the most vast fairway I've ever seen in my life, and somehow I've got to now punch out. This sucks so much.
Well, I mean, Tethero's not the best example of links golf. Just again, because I mean, Teddy, for those who don't know, Tethero has an infamous nickname from a lot of people that play it, and it's called Death Row. So if that's any indication of what transpires there, and again, they've made it easier since it's opened, quite a bit easier. But it's, and the same thing at Bandon too, right? Like I always tell people, like you can go hit the range at the practice facility at Bandon's phenomenal. You can go hit the range all you want. You need to practice your lag putts. You need to practice 75-foot putts because just because you're hitting fairways and greens doesn't mean you're going to score well by any means.
Yeah, well, welcome to my life. Everything at the point that I can hit fairways and greens, I cannot make putts. So we're about pretty close just to going over to lab and getting like a broomstick or something, calling it good. I don't think it's my putting stroke. It's just my ability to read greens is like I always just miss it just by a little bit. It's like, well, I hit it exactly where I wanted. I just did not see that much break in it. So
well, and then the problem is then that creeps in. And then that affects the putting stroke, and you're trying to do too much and I always, again, I'm not by no means a swing coach or anything like that. But what I see a lot is I see athletes, people that have athletic ability, trying to do too much with, and not believing I'm going to make this putt, just keep it simple and make the putt. They think, oh, well, I've been pulling it all day, so now I'm going to try to push it the other way. And it's just, doubt creeps in the golf game, and all bets are off or whatever.
It doesn't become fun anymore at that point.
Yeah, actually, that is literally the best advice I've ever gotten in golf was from Teddy, and it was this year, and he said, just when you go putt, just be athletic. And I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna go stand up there and putt, and it was like, all right, now I'm starting to putt better.
Well, I putt great when I'm not thinking and I'm not spending 5 minutes reading the putt or, no practice putts, just go up and I'm such a field putter. But I think there's something to be said, obviously, for aim point and the success that some of these guys are having for that. But again, like we're amateur golfers, right? Like we're not living in that world. So I'm like, I want to just go, continue be a single digit handicapper until my golf days are done. That's all I really want.
Totally. We're going on a little over an hour now, going to hour 15. I mean, we've talked about so many cool things, like some of the courses you've shot. I mean, you were fortunate enough to be part of the Bandon Dudes 25th anniversary event. I saw some of the pictures from that. That looked just like a phenomenal experience. Like being at the course, was it as cool as it looked? Because I'm 4 hours away, and I definitely had the FOMO going on.
Yeah, well, and I think everyone did that wasn't there, but that's just it just goes to show you how good Bandon Dunes does roll out. Courses like this, how good of a marketing team they do have to put all this together, right? Because again, I don't, like Teddy knows, but like I take it for granted how hard it is to get that many people all in the golf industry to Bandon Dunes at the same time. I mean, it's like you probably have 30 of these people probably on the same flight out of Jacksonville, Florida, trying to get there, right? Yeah. You got the No Lane Up guys, you got everybody from PGA Tour headquarters going from Orlando and Frisco. But it's just when I always tell people, there's no other way to put it. It's world class. From the moment you drive on property and drop your clubs off, and if you're lucky enough to be there when Shorty's working and he can, greet you and you can just kind of have the experience of Shu coming in and everybody just kind of having this, that whole welcome, and I remember the first time we got there, Shu came up and he said, "Welcome to Bandon Dunes." And I said, "Yeah, this is our first time." And he goes, "We've only been open for 16 years. What took you so long?" And it was just a classic moment. And again, the fact that there's people there that open the resort that are still working there. And that's a testament to, I think, the belief that the Kaisers have in the property, and also the belief that the community had in what Bandon Dunes is doing. And, that property is so special that I think when you get a collection of people from, like the 25th anniversary, it's just, and the weather wasn't great, right? Like it wasn't
Does that
good.
make it better or worse though?
Well, I mean, it's like, that's the thing, is I think there's a certain part of it that's like, all right, boys, we're in for it. This is a atypical Bandon day, maybe where everybody's going to have an extra beverage at the turn or whatever the case may be. But it's certainly going to be memorable. And that, the Preserve is one of the best par 3 courses, in the world. Probably in my experience, and again, I haven't played all over the world, but it is certainly one of the better par 3 courses that I've ever played. The views are exceptional. Shorties is completely different than Preserve. So it's giving golfers on property a total different look at what par 3 golf could be. And so I think it's just going to be great for the resort. And I think ultimately, this isn't the end of Bandon Dunes. There's more in store in the future. And I think, it'll be really interesting to look back on this in 20 years and think, where are we now? And same thing with, Sand Valley and some of these properties. I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds of acres nearby that
they've already started building the Colorado one.
Oh yeah. Yep. Rodeo Dunes.
Yeah. Rodeo Dunes. The Kaisers have started. I mean, Cam and I were talking about that one day. It was like, damn, dude, this empire of golf is growing, which is really cool to like see them go from what they've done to where they are now.
Yeah. And again, I mean, my dad told me he went down in 1999 when the course, when it was the Bandon Dunes Lodge was, a double wide. That's all that was there. It was a double wide to check people in. It was double wide for the caddy shack. That was it. And now to see it, what it's grown into, and the fact that they're hosting U.S. amateurs and, really, really great tournaments that expose, people to just, again, the golf that we have to offer in this area. And then, Chambers Bay was another one that coming on the map was great for it. But again, I mean, I go back, I tell everyone, like, if you haven't been to Bandon, obviously, do whatever you can to try to make it work. I know it's, again, can be very challenging for people in some parts of the country.
Or state.
It's, well, it is just, it is by far the best golf experience that I think you can have. And again, you have so many top 100 courses that are a shuttle ride away. Right? You park your car, you get in the shuttle, they'll take you everywhere. I also tell people a lot, like, Bandon's a great place to go have fun. I had my bachelor party at Bandon. We didn't stay on property. We stayed off property, which I think the folks at Bandon are probably grateful for. But we were out there one day and it was 30-mile-an-hour winds and we were on Old Mac and we were the only people out there. Everybody else had gone in and but those memories I'll have forever. And I think that's the kind of special thing about Bandon is obviously you hope you get great weather and you hope you get, great company and all that and hit good golf shots. But you go out to some of those reveals and, it's just one of those spots that, your body will feel different. And there's a reason why I got a bunch of buddies who are like, every year, like, we're going to plan this golf trip. We're going to go here. We're going to go to Cabo. We're going to go to, wherever. And every year they come back and they're like, God, should we just go to Bandon again? They're like, and again, these are Portland guys. So they're like, it's so,
it's too close.
Yeah.
Like, it's too easy to get to. Like, we got to do something.
Yeah. And so again, it's like I always joke with my wife. She knows like once a year at least I'm down there. Fortunate that I've already been 3 times this year and hopefully we'll go again. But yeah, it's like I can go spend a weekend down there.
Mhm.
It's, the value that you get there, even today, Bandon Dunes greens, are in rough shape. Unfortunately, that's what happens when you run a golf course 365 days a year and you never give it a break. And you have the 2 wettest winters in the history of the Oregon coast.
Yeah.
And I tell people like, how are they going to fix it? Well, they have to close down, and that's not in
Going to
the
happen right now.
well, I mean, you look at Rodeo Dunes, you look at Sand Valley. What's the engine that's keeping all that going? It's Bandon Dunes, because what's open year round? Bandon Dunes. And so again, and it's also, the thing is, the community relies on it now. How many jobs that it employs. It's a big part of that community, and you'll get some people that don't like the Kaisers, or have their own opinions about what goes on. But I can tell you, Bandon, the Southern Oregon coast would not be the place it is today if it wasn't for Bandon Dunes.
The entire Oregon coast is absolutely beautiful, and it's completely different than anything you're ever going to see in like Florida, Teddy, because it's just like mountains and you can literally sit on a coast and see these huge tree lines, etc. But there's such small little cities along the Oregon coast that are just these little fishing depots. So it's pretty crazy, because he's 100% accurate. Like, if Bandon Dunes was not there, people would not really be in Southern Oregon, and it would not drive anything, because it is and I mean this in the nicest way, but it's like one of those rundown coasty towns.
Yeah.
And now it's turned into like just a cool place that thousands and thousands of people are going to on a yearly basis, etc. So it's a really good like perspective to have on it. So that was cool. Thanks for reminding me about it there, Scott.
Will you just make him go?
Yeah,
Scott?
no, we're
'Cause, like, this is
we're
ridiculous.
going. I am going to go before the end of the year. We are going to
Oh,
say that right now.
okay.
So
Love
I'll
it.
make it happen.
I'll hold you to it.
You should, because everyone's like, wait a second, you haven't gone? Yeah, I know. Such a loser. All right, so we wanted to end this. I mean, we've talked about, like I said, cool things with it, but we've got one question that we are starting to ask every guest that we've got on here. What's the best hot dog, pork missile, glizzy, turn dog, all sorts of different terms that you can use. What's the best one that you've ever had? Of course.
And in detail as well. Like, do they grill it, fry it? Do they split it?
Yeah. So, I have not been fortunate enough to visit Olympic Club and have the illustrious burger dog down there, but I think that would be take the crown if I had it. But you know what? I'm going to go. It's a little sneaky one. And this is a shout out to one of my buddies that lived in Arizona for a long time. The Biltmore in Arizona. Biltmore, which 2 great golf courses, definitely affordable, definitely not going to charge $200 peak season or whatever. It's a sneaky one, and also a great place to go hang out, have a drink. Enjoy kind of the patio, the vibes, all that, even if you're not playing golf. But the Biltmore, one of my buddies, he runs an account. It's a Glizzy Golf Gang, and they
shout out Glizzy Golf Gang.
Yeah, shout out Glizzy Golf Gang, which I think there's like 10 of those on Instagram.
Yeah, that checks out.
They're the one with like 7 Z's, not just one. But they had one, and then I will also say the worst one I've ever had was in Arizona too, and I won't throw any shade at this one.
We need to name and shame.
Well, it's it's the highest tee shot in the city of Phoenix.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, and it is. It's one that the end of the course, the name ends with mountain,
Okay.
And it's unfortunately it was sold to us as very promising, and yeah, we
Hot dog or the course?
the hot dog.
Oh God.
Course is fine. Course is fine.
Yeah.
Classic desert layout. But the hot dog, I don't even think they got finished. That's how bad they were.
That's rough.
Oh yeah, it was not good. It was. I mean, I could send the text right now, and my buddy would be like, "Oh," like he would get.
Just so burnt
yeah.
about it.
He'd be mad about it right now, and this is 3 years later. So
That's hilarious. I'm surprised you don't rank Tokati as like top, because I think like Kennedy out there, they've done such a good job. Like I literally look forward to the turn dog.
well, and I've actually, this is another. I guess this is mine. I got to get back to Tokati. I haven't been since she's taken over things. So it's been 2 years since I've been down there.
Oh.
2-3 years. So that's definitely on the list.
Dude,
for me.
I consider it to be a little bit of a treat, because it's like it's an hour and 15 from me.
Yeah.
But you're literally in the middle of the woods. All you see is this old growth forest. Like, I mean, number 2 is the most picturesque par 4, because you literally hit your drive into just trees and you just watch it float into these trees. It's like it's super, super cool. Teddy, when you make it to Oregon, we're definitely going out there.
That'll
So
be on the list.
that's going to be on the list. I know Emerald Valley's probably going to be on the list. We're going to have to drive and go to Bandon. I mean, if you're coming all this way out, we're making it worth it. So, but cool. Well, I appreciate you taking the time. Scott is super fun. I hope everyone visits you on Pacific Northwest Golfer. That is hilarious, because Cam would probably try and put the bucket hat on as well.
There's the bucket hat for you.
So,
yeah.
Scott, what's next on the schedule? Do you have anything coming out soon?
Yes. So I'm headed. I have 2 more big tournament shoots coming up this summer. One's actually starting in a few days down at Tristing Tree. It's the PNGA Junior Tournament. And then another one's down in Bar Run here at the end of the month. I'll be back out at Astoria doing some stuff with them. And then hopefully I'm actually going to play a great little track here in Portland, Portland Golf Club tomorrow. So that'll be a little treat. So
yeah.
2 weeks ago I got to play Waverly, and this week I'm playing Portland. So lucky enough to, again, like I said, this August has been treating me really well for golf.
Both those courses are pretty hard to get onto.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like for people not in Oregon, like both those clubs, like you got to know some people to pull that. So that's pretty cool that you're getting on there.
Yeah.
Nice. Well,
Yeah.
cool,
Yeah.
Scott. Like I said, appreciate you taking the time, and everyone can see you at isn't it PNW_golfer?
Yep, that's
on Instagram.
Yep.
Yeah, and then everyone can check out his website, pnwgolfer.com, and hopefully you guys check out the Pitchmark Collective as well. And we will talk to you guys soon.
Yeah, thank you guys.
See ya.
Yeah.